Welcome back, everybody. This is Steve, and today I want to play around with DoubleSpace. This machine has plenty of free disk space, and spelling counts. But I still want to play with the software and see what all it was like to do DoubleSpace. What DoubleSpace would do is it would attempt to do very easy disk compression, file compression, and save it to disk. And the goal was to get somewhere around the neighborhood of 2-to-1, which is where the name double comes from, DoubleSpace. There's a lot of controversy surrounding DoubleSpace. Did Microsoft steal the code from Stacker? Because Stac made a product before DoubleSpace came out. And there's a couple of different theories of operations. We're going to take a little tiny bit of memory. We're going to take a little tiny bit of processing power. We're going to use a little bit of disk cache, which everybody was already using in the first place. And if we read from the disk half the amount of data, it will take half the amount of time to read it, and the processor's faster than the disk, so there should be some speed up there. If we compress the data on the way to disk, then there's less writing to the disk, and the disk is pretty slow, and the processor's pretty fast, so that should speed up some operations there as well. So what do we have to do in order to take care of that? Let's find out. All right, so before you do any kind of experiment like this, you need to have some ability to record the differences. So what I am going to do is I'm going to run this program here that I wrote. It's a batch file that I wrote that will very quickly create a log.txt file in the root directory of the C drive. I'm going to make a real quick addition here and tell us when we're starting. And I'm going to do this little trick with echo. If you do echo dot, it will just echo a blank line to the screen. It won't put any text on the screen. I'm going to echo dot pipe to time. And what that's going to do, when you run the DOS time command, it actually asks you to change the time. And then it just sits and waits. So that's not going to be a fair test because that requires human intervention. And we can't have human intervention, otherwise it's going to skew the test numbers. So we'll do this echo dot pipe to time. And then that's going to output current time, and then the second line is going to be enter a new time, and then the echo dot's going to press enter. And so all I want to do is I want to find the line that starts with the word current, capital C, lowercase u, lowercase r, and I'm going to put that into the log.txt file. Next up, I'm going to make a directory called test1. Why I called it test1, I don't know, I just called it test1. And I'm going to run xcopy to copy all the files from the Windows folder to the test1 folder, all their subdirectories, even if they're empty, verify them, and answer yes to all questions. Then I'm going to delete the folder that I just copied because I don't really need it. It's only for the purpose of the test, and that will also be part of the how long does it take to do disk write, disk read operations profile. And then I'm going to record the stop time out to that same log file. I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to show the log file. And then we're going to run DoubleSpace. We're going to make all of the changes, and we're going to go back and rerun this program, and then it'll have a before and after time comparison of the first time, and then a before and after time comparison of the second time, and we'll know how much of a disk speed up there was. So let's take a look there. Let's get rid of the original log.txt because we haven't run the test yet. I did test out the batch file to make sure that it worked. And then let's run DoubleSpace. That's DoubleSpace. DoubleSpace does not find any drives that can be compressed. To compress a disk, first make sure it is formatted and does not contain over 512. What? DoubleSpace. DoubleSpace defragment. Nice. So maybe this disk is too big for DoubleSpace? Let's see. Drive C contains too much data to compress. It cannot contain more than 512 megabytes of data. Yep, it does have more than 512 megabytes of data. All right, let's see if we can delete some files. Oh, I'm spelling Deltree wrong. All right, so now we have less than 512 megabytes of files. Let's see if we can do it now. Okay, it's happier. Weird. All right, welcome. To set it up, press enter. To learn more, to quit without installing. All right, we wanted to do the setup. Let's do a custom setup because I can't do this one twice. I want to... Well, see, if I was able to create a new empty compressed drive, it should not have mattered that there was more than 512 megs of files on the disk. Software gore. Compress an existing drive. Free space on new uncompressed drive. DoubleSpace will compress C to create free space on it. Certain files such as the Windows permanent swap file must remain uncompressed when DoubleSpace compresses drive C. It will also create a new uncompressed drive to contain files from drive C that must remain. DoubleSpace creates the new uncompressed using the following settings. Drive letter I. And I'm going to make this 100 megabytes, just to be safe. It's a 1.6 gig drive. I can give up 0.1 of it. And I wonder if it's going to automatically fix last drive. I've got last drive set to D, so drive I will not be accessible. It should be smart enough to fix that. You should back up the files it contains. Well, of course, I've already backed them up. I'm a pro. To compress this drive now, hit continue. All right. And now we've already done that. DoubleSpace is ready to compress drive C. This will take about 4 hours and 5 minutes. This time may vary depending on your system configuration and the number of files on your system. 4 hours and 5 minutes is a long time. 380 megabytes worth of data in 4 hours. Okay, let's compress it. Let's do it. I'm probably going to turn my camera off and speed up a whole bunch of this, so you don't have to sit for 4 hours and watch this. Skip the surface scan. Do I wish to do it anyway? Yes, I wish to do it anyway. DoubleSpace will restart. Okay, so time left is already shrunk down to 1 hour and 11 minutes. That's much better. And no, the clock isn't accurate. I mean, it's accurately telling time, but it's not accurately telling the current time. All right, so the joys of recording video, I did not have the audio turned on, and I think during that time of copying the files and deleting the files that took quite a while to do, I think that I realized what was going on. I think DoubleSpace has a limitation that it can't do more than a 512 meg partition at all. And this was written at a time when drives were probably 80 megabytes to begin with. So, you know, they didn't do a whole lot of forward thinking about making it better than it really needed to be. They just kept running with what was well beyond the norm of the time. So it kind of created this weird situation. We've got a 1.6 gig drive with a 1.2 gig remaining drive and a DoubleSpace partition that is 512 megs. And inside of that was 350 megs that then got compressed. So the copy of the Windows folder, if you were watching those files go by, I sped it up a bit to save you some time. But if you were watching those files go by, you notice that there was a good mix of like WAV files which don't compress, bitmap files which don't compress, TrueType fonts which don't compress, a bunch of overlays, DLL. So there was a healthy mix between stuff that did compress and stuff that didn't compress. And if I take a look at the time, we'll do a little time calculation here. So that was 13 minutes, 36 seconds. All right, so now we've made a backup of that just in case anything goes sideways. And let's run DoubleSpace again and uncompress the drive. Compressed drive. Change size, change ratio, unmount, format, delete. Existing drive, create, so let's uncompress. Compressing drive C could take from several minutes to several hours depending on the size and speed. DoubleSpace will uncompress drive C by moving the files on it to uncompressed drive I. Before uncompressing this drive, you should back up files. We already had a backup, of course. I want to uncompress, yes. At least one of the file names in the root directory of drive C is the same as the file name in the root directory of drive I. DoubleSpace can resolve this. List the file names. Okay, let's take a look at that file. DoubleSpace found copies. Okay. And we already looked inside that Windows folder and found nothing in there that was of any value. Let's get rid of that one. Let's run DoubleSpace again. And you notice that the interface has changed now that we actually have a DoubleSpace drive. And you can see the total size is 511.79, roughly 512 megabytes. So that jives with what I was talking about. So let's tools, uncompress. Yes, I want to uncompress drive C. It's going to run scan disk again. Just doing my thing, boss. You stopped it. Oh, you have no choice. You have to run scan disk now. That's a pain in the butt. All right, it is almost done. Now it's checking some extra DoubleSpace stuff. Neat. Gotta do another surface scan. What surface are you actually scanning right now? This is inside of the DoubleSpace container? Why? Okay, we'll be back. Okay, that was super interesting. When it was trying to do the surface scan of the compressed volume, which doesn't make any sense, when it got to the empty space on the compressed volume, it just breezed right on by. So now we're uncompressing everything, and it took about an hour to compress it. I'm going to assume it's going to take about 2 hours to decompress. We'll see. All right, we have reached the end of uncompression, which is nice that it's able to compress and then uncompress the files, and it wants to know if we should uninstall DoubleSpace because there's no more DoubleSpace drives. Yes! DoubleSpace is going to restart. Check disk on C shows 1.6 gigs total space, which is up. And then let's check out the iDrive. There isn't one. And there is no DoubleSpace driver in config.sys. Excellent. So now we need to run that test program again. And last time it took 13 minutes and change. Let's see how long it takes this time. All right, here's where it gets interesting. I'm sure some of you have already seen the time on the screen here, but let's do a little bit of math here. And I don't know why I forgot to type in the file name, but I did. Log.txt. And then the start time and stop time is on the screen for without DoubleSpace. And that looks to me to be 7 minutes and 16 seconds. So it was actually faster without DoubleSpace installed. So I guess what this means is that in the time it took for hard disks to exceed the 512 megabyte size, more technology has come out. So this is probably a local bus version, local bus flavor of IDE controller because it is built into the motherboard. And this is obviously a 1.6 gig drive, so it's had a lot of time to increase in technology. So that's some interesting findings. We may have to go back and revisit this on another machine to verify, ferret all of this stuff out, but it clearly is not designed to work with a hard disk this big and a machine this modern. So interesting findings there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. In the meantime, there are some videos over there that YouTube and I think that you might like. And be sure to subscribe to this channel because it is a new one and I need subscribers over here. And press that like button because that tells YouTube that I exist and I like to exist. It's very, very nice to exist. Thanks for being awesome. We'll see you in the next one.